Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Empowering Efficiency and Attaining Energy Star Excellence. We will give it another minute or so to allow people to join before we get started. It's a beautiful day here in Wisconsin. And then I know Michael's in Chicago, Isela. Isela, where are you located today?
Bay Area.
Bay Area. Beautiful. You know, I heard a joke too. It was actually kind of funny. It was do you know the Earth is 70% water and non-carbonated, and so I guess it's technically flat, right? I tried. It's a little bit of a stretch.
Good.
Give you a light chuckle for that one.
Okay, I'll take a light chuckle. Oh, I even got a little clap from our reaction. All right, I like it. We
That's what
got
they
a
would
live
call
audience today.
a good dad joke, right?
Yeah, right. All right. Well, we're a minute and a half in, so let's so before we get started, we got a few housekeeping items. The webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be distributed to everyone after the session. Second, we'll be saving some time at the end of the webinar to answer questions. So we're going to be going, we're going to be doing questions the entire time. We got some questions kind of queued up for us, and then we'll take everyone's questions as we're going as well. If at any point you have a question, please submit it to the GoToWebinar control panel in the questions section. We'll attempt to answer as many as we can. If we don't get to all of them, we'll try to follow up after the webinar to provide some answers. So now I think we'll do a couple of quick intros. So Isela, you want to take us away for to just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Good morning and good afternoon. I'm here in the Bay Area, and my name is Isela Rosales, Global Head of Sustainability and Responsibility at Bridge Investment Group. I do have just a couple of slides to share more about my company, as those are placed on the screen. Most of what I'll be sharing today is relating to the multifamily side of our real estate business. So we have approximately 48.9 billion in overall asset management across various property types in real estate, as well as an infrastructure strategy and a private equity secondaries business. And I'm really excited about this panel because I will be that voice speaking from those really doing Energy Star certification, kind of giving some tips, some helpful tips for those that are just starting on the journey. And I'm really excited to be able to share some insight from our journey thus far. And as you can see here, we have a great footprint around the U.S. So all of our real estate assets and portfolio today are based around the U.S. We also have offices both in the U.S. and globally. And if we can just go to the next slide. There we go. So just some highlights on our program. So as I mentioned, I am the head of our Sustainability and Responsibility program. So this is the part of the company that is focused on the E, S, and the G. And we really try to look to incorporate that in improving our decision making and risk management. And it works well because we have, among our company values, we have both citizenship and responsibility. And in all of our work, we really look to learn and lead in ESG practices across our business functions, as well as at the property level across our communities. And also, as I think about just the broader ecosystem of our work, we really try to look for ways that we can do things across the company. We have a lot of collaboration happening day to day with our dedicated team, as well as all of our verticals, as we call them, and across our asset teams. And just kind of the last set of highlights, which will be on the next screen. I think it's always fun to see what firms are doing in each of the E, the S, and the G. And so this is just a quick snapshot into that. And I know today we're mostly going to be focusing on the E, talking about what can we do to highlight great environmental building performance by way of Energy Star scoring and ultimately those certifications. But obviously, there is an important factor to consider, and that is we don't get here without great data management and reporting practices. So thank you for the chance to introduce myself and my company.
Perfect. Thank you so
Awesome.
much, Michael.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Michael Braun. I'm the Director of Sustainability Engineering at Lilybridge Healthcare Services. Lilybridge is a wholly owned subsidiary of Ventas. We are the operating partner for the majority of outpatient medical buildings or medical office buildings in the portfolio. And a quick about, I've been here about 2 years and reside out of Chicago. Before that, I've got a long, extensive history in energy efficiency, being a mechanical engineer originally. So I very much enjoy the projects that get you to Energy Star certification and getting recognition and credit when you implement those projects from Energy Star. So really quick about Ventas, we're a healthcare REIT with some stats down below, but ultimately we're invested in helping people live longer, healthier, and happier lives. In 2023, we hit our 25-year milestone of success. Then if you jump to the next slide, I'll talk a little bit about Lilybridge. So Ventas as a whole owns primarily senior housing assets, outpatient medical buildings, and research facilities. On the Lilybridge side of the business, we're really focused on those outpatient medical buildings. We've got a nationwide presence operating across 36 states, working on a little over 400 medical office buildings. We value our partnerships with the hospitals and the healthcare systems, pride ourselves in tenant satisfaction as measured by Kingsley scores for tenant satisfaction. And last but certainly not least, and definitely my focus, is our sustainability leadership. So last year, or this past year, we were recognized as another partner of the year for sustained excellence in energy management for the second year in a row. We're really proud of that. And we also had the most Energy Star certifications at Ventas of any healthcare REIT. At Lilybridge specifically, we've been growing this program, and I can't take credit for early growth because I wasn't here yet, but in 2021, we went from 20 buildings certified, 22, 43, and in 2023, we were up to 66. We're looking to grow that again this year and really see a value in benchmarking process through Energy Star and then getting that credit and really bragging about your sustainability accomplishments. So thank you for the opportunity to be here and happy to join the panel.
That's great work for both of you. Thank you very much. Really, really appreciate you guys joining us today. Michael's even pulling double duty. He did an EPA webinar yesterday, so we're thankful to have him today as well to hopefully not rehash the same ideas. I think we've got a lot more additional discussion to add to that. My name is Josh Schubert. I'm a Senior Director of Energy Engineering for Conservice. Prior to that, I was with Gobi. I've been at this for 15 years. I do a lot, Conservice as a whole, we're one of the largest utility management solution providers in the US. So we're utility experts. We do a lot of utility bill acquisition and payment, support for our customers, a lot in the multifamily realm, as well in commercial across all of North America. So I work in the ESG department, so been with Conservice for a couple of years now. Gobi since 2009, so I've been at it for 15 years. Got my start doing like a few Energy Star certifications. I think the first year we did maybe 5, and now we do over 1,000 a year. So we're one of the leaders in commercial building certifications. I think we have our processes down, to a science, really, to be able to take this utility data that Conservice is able to ingest and layer on the certifications and the ESG components for doing benchmarking and awarding certifications. And we've been Energy Star Partner of the Year since 2012. So various combinations of Partner of the Year and Sustained Excellence, and with Gobi and with Conservis. And it's been really fun partnering with the EPA. I highly recommend any organization to become an Energy Star Partner and kind of go through those steps of taking the commitments and trying to earn some recognition for your efforts. The a few other things that our department works on is like GRESB, and we work with ULI and Fitwell and LEED. So our department is pretty busy. We got a lot of things going on. What I'm going to talk a little bit about today is I'm going to give us a little intro into Energy Star for anyone new to the program or want to learn a little bit more. I lifted a couple of slides from the EPA just so that I can better talk to their program. Energy Star is a very widely accepted and recognized symbol of energy efficiency. So you see it on tons of things, from televisions to refrigerators, and you can see it on buildings. In our buildings program that we're going to talk about today, the EPA built, was it 21 years ago? They built Energy Star Portfolio Manager, which is their free tool to benchmark and assess these buildings. So we've all heard you can't conserve if you don't know what you're consuming. So that's the benchmarking component of what we're trying to do with Energy Star. And they use that Energy Star Portfolio Manager tool to input, so very simply, the square footage and some simple building attributes and the utility data. So Conservis kind of fits well into that realm because we're getting access to that utility data on a wide variety of buildings, and there's so many complications that go into acquiring utility data, and so many nuances that it really helps to have that special touch and the special pulse on those utility components. So the EPA, what they want, they're pushing for people to improve their buildings. So they come up with some fun ways for people to benchmark their buildings, see where they're at, and then try to if you need savings, if you need higher scores. So they built this program with a 1 to 100 score, where people can figure out, like, well, that's an easy indicator to show, like, am I doing good? Am I doing okay? Am I doing bad? So that's where the score comes in. And then finally, they offer recognition opportunities, and these are no cost from the EPA. There can be there are costs when it comes to hiring a professional to review and verify and acquire data. So there's a lot of different pieces that go into this puzzle. But earning recognition, what we're talking about today, is the Commercial Buildings Energy Star program. But they also have Design to Earn the Energy Star. They have the Tenant Space program. They have the upcoming Next Gen certification, which they're launching in December, which we do plan on offering for our customers. And then they have the Energy Star Challenge for industry, which is something that I do a couple of them a year. They're a little bit different type of an industry challenge, but they're fun nonetheless. To talk a little bit about, so that's what Energy Star is, and maybe I could talk a little bit about how we do it on the next slide. So the way the program works is you have a profile in Energy Star Portfolio Manager, and when you're above the 75 score, you're eligible to earn an award. So all the different pieces that come together to create this score is something that we, our team will take a property through the process, and we're verifying a bunch of things, all of the attributes on the profile, the square footage, and then there's building specific components that we talk about. In multifamily, it's like number of bedrooms, number of units, how many stories the building is, how many buildings are there. For medical offices, it's are there any MRI machines? Are there, what are the operating hours? How many people, how many computers are on site? Things of that nature. So the EPA just wants to make sure that the building fits in the right category for their award. And what we're doing is we're validating the attributes for the building. We're ensuring that the energy data is whole building. So that's another a sticky point where we want to make sure that all of the tenants and residents and other pieces of the building are included in a single building application. There's a little nuance to multifamily if there's a campus or if it's a medical office campus. Or office campus is different, but if it's a medical campus, they have other awards for hospital systems as well. But yeah, when it comes to multifamily buildings, we want to make sure we have all of them included for the property. And then when we take those site attributes and the utility data, we're having a site visit performed, and there's a few different ways we do that, and a few simple measurements that they're taking to show that the building is a normally operating facility and it's comparable to other facilities nationwide. So back on this score, we're trying. The EPA is trying to make an easy score to compare buildings in Wisconsin to buildings in the Bay Area to buildings in Chicago and buildings in Florida. So they do some weather normalization, and they try to make sure that the buildings are comparable. And then lastly, for when you pursue an award certification, there's a licensed professional review, which is someone like myself will review the application for completeness, that we've verified everything, that they've done the site visit, that the measurements conform to the simple way that the EPA wants these buildings to be checked and verified, and making sure that it's, you're not leaving your tenants in the dark, that you're not starving them of air conditioning in the summer, that you're, underheating the building in the winter. So it is a momentary spot check of making sure that the building is just a normally operating facility, so it should be comparable to other like facilities. Great. So that's kind of a little bit about what the program is and how we do it. But maybe we'll probably move into the next session of our discussion today, which is going to be more of a panel discussion. And what we want to do is maybe we'll start this off with a question for Isela. Isela, do you want to maybe provide an overview of Bridge's new program for multifamily properties?
Sure, and I'll give some context to you. So we're fortunate that we've done Energy Star certification work in other areas of our company, notably in our commercial office division. That's been taking place for many years, and we've had many properties that have achieved that accolade of getting a score of 75 or higher that you noted, Josh, and then they've gone on to pursue and acquire that certification. So really proud of the work that's been done in that vertical. Today, though, with multifamily, we're really starting from the beginning, and we've been looking at this opportunity for this property type for some time. First of all, recognizing what the program has to offer. Josh, you did a great job of outlining what it is, and also the why. Why do people choose to do Energy Star certification in the first place? It is a well-known program. So often when individuals are looking at the various certifications and rating options out there, this is among the most achievable, I would say. It's very manageable. Now, that being said, there are requirements. It's not just something you show up and you get it. There is work to be done, as you noted, Josh. And then, of course, having it ultimately approved by the EPA. In our journey, as I've been building our overall sustainability and responsibility program at the company, is identifying, do we have a collection of properties that could be eligible So I would say that whether a firm out there maybe only has a couple of properties or has a lot, either way, if you haven't started, really give it some thought as to the merits for starting at this time and who might be a great partner, such as Conservice, who can work with you and help you. So what has been helpful for us is the following. Well, first of all, the data. I would say I'm going to walk through maybe 3 key areas that for us were really kind of tipping points. So one is the data. So collecting the data, you absolutely need to work with a great partner who can help you get that data, because it's especially with multifamily. You made a point, Josh, of saying, multifamily comes in different shapes and sizes, and it absolutely does. In our case, we mostly own Class B and Class C multifamily, low and mid-rise primarily. And so it is more of that campus makeup that you mentioned, Josh. And that's important because that does add complexity to the way the data can get collected. One of the proactive measures that we took is that we requested, with Conservice's help, that we go out to the utility companies and request whole building data. That's the phrase you'll often hear. So that is entire data for both your common area and your resident occupied units. So we made the requests for the utility companies to be to hopefully respond to that request twice a year. In other words, we, through Conservice, are asking our utility company providers for multifamily to please provide the data. So that allows us 2 opportunities a year to hopefully pursue Energy Star certification for those properties that have both whole building data and a score of 75 or higher. The other thing I would say that's important is understanding your properties. And what I mean by that is understanding the information that you have relating to the characteristics of your properties. So that includes everything from square footage, that includes occupancy, that includes even just the makeup of your property, number of units, floors. There's a lot of there's a whole list that Conservice can provide for you of all the items that you might say, yeah, I've got most of that. Well, let's make sure you have all of that. It's really important to have all that available and that it's confirmed. And you might need to consult various people at your organization to get that information. It might just not be housed all in one document or all by one person. You might need to consult various parties, both maybe at the property level as well as your asset management teams. And the third thing I would say, which I maybe like to categorize as more pro tips, like what might you not know just offhand that may not be shared kind of day to day in getting ready for Energy Star certifications. And I would say, so using my example of where we go and request data twice a year. So what that usually means is in Q1 of a given year, we request whole building data for the prior year end, i.e. 12/31. And then we do it again in 3Q. So hopefully we're getting data as of 6/30 of that current year. Those dates are important. And why? Because when you go to pursue an Energy Star certification, your quote application window that you have to work with is exactly 120 days. And I'll say that again. So if your year-end data is as of 12/31, but you might not actually get it until, say, maybe late February, you've already, in a way, burned through almost half of your 120-day window. And that's not something that everybody may not know offhand. The other thing, too, that I'll say is occupancy. If for whatever reason you might have multifamily or another property type where occupancy has fluctuated extensively, it is important to remember that Energy Star does have rules for what it needs to be. In the case of multifamily, I just looked it up to be sure, it has to be at least 80%. So if by chance you have a building that maybe at the beginning of the year was 50% and at the end of the year it was 100%, you take the average, that's 75%, you technically aren't at your minimum of needing the 80% of occupancy.
Those are great points. Thank you very much. And yeah, the timing is there's a whole I could probably talk for an hour on timing. But yeah, no, really those are great pro tips. I think we're gonna dot some other pro tips throughout the webinar as well. So make sure everyone's paying attention, right? Isela, maybe and actually I think I'm gonna go both of you on this question. Could you talk a little bit to some of your motivations for pursuing Energy Star certification? Maybe we'll start with Acela and then have Michael pick up from there too.
Sure. So I touched on that briefly, which is just, understanding this as one of the many options. It is one that's very well recognized and respected. And I would say it extends beyond, call it the sustainability appeal. That is recognizing that this building is performing above its medium and that is performing at a very strong efficiency level, assuming that score of 75 or higher is confirmed. Because sometimes it could be a bit misleading. You can log into ESPM and you see that shiny score 85, and you start drilling down. It's not really 85 because maybe some of that
Or
data is
yeah,
missing or
or you
the
see
meter is
that
off.
like,
Yeah,
or you see that invasive 100 score, and then you realize you don't have whole building utility data.
yeah,
I can't tell you how
exactly.
many times that happens.
Yeah, yeah.
A
So
lot.
once you clear all of that, and you're like, okay, no, this is
Mhm.
real. Score is very real. Let's go. Let's press go. Um, it's also important to understand after all the work that's done, how do you celebrate this too? And that often goes back to why you would do this. So understanding it can help with your marketing and your leasing. In fact, I'll go give another pro tip out there, and I have one of my colleagues to thank for this one. So there is a feature on Energy Star Online, and it's called Energy Star Buildings and Plants Online Store. I just went to go look at it this morning. There's a feature in there called Find My Facility. So why would that be helpful? So if you're thinking of doing Energy Star certification, you can type in, say, a city, state, and a zip code, and it'll tell you all of the
Mhm.
properties in that area that have an active certification. You might find that you could be one, if not the only one, in your zip code for your type of building or your type of property that is going to go get one of these. And that's huge. If you're the only one within, say, a 5 or 10 mile radius that is going to get an Energy Building Star certification, yet another reason it can be helpful on your leasing and marketing side of that building. So I'll pause there. I want Michael to also chime in.
Yeah, I think that public recognition is a big part of the why we do it as well, right? And you know, similar to the ESG programs we saw from Isela, we've been at our ESG initiatives for a long time and really investing heavily in energy efficiency over the last 5 years. And it's really nice to show that to the marketplace in the form of increased Energy Star certifications and to show that to your tenants in the form of increased Energy Star certifications. So I would say definitely recognition is a big portion of wanting to go out and get these certifications. And it's not, in the scheme of all of the building certifications you can go out and get, it's relatively attainable. You still need data, you still need accuracy, but it's attainable. And then the other major driver of this is
Mhm.
we really want a fair way to compare our buildings' energy performance across the portfolio. I think Josh, you mentioned, how do you compare a building in Florida to Chicago? How do you compare a building in the Bay to Wisconsin? um, Energy Star takes all of that into account, right? And I can't tell you how many conversations I've been in where it's like, okay, my energy or my utility cost is going through the roof. Michael, what's going on? Why is that happening? One of the first places I'll check is Energy Star Portfolio Manager, and I'll look and see, okay, is this a consumption issue? Is this a how we're operating a building issue? Is this something that I need to go out to our chief engineers and address? Or is this a rate issue where we don't have as much control over that? And so, it's helpful to know really how are we operating our buildings? Are we doing the best that we can? Energy Star scores, from my perspective, there's not a one perfect benchmarking solution out there. You can find a building scenario that you'd be like, oh, but what about this weird nuanced scenario in my building? But for medical office buildings, it's pretty good. It takes into account how many MRIs are in place. Your occupancy is a huge driver. Um, Surgery centers are a huge driver for these things, and so that really levels the playing field of very different properties we have across the U.S. and says, okay, this one's at a 90, this one's at 89. I think this one's doing a little better. Or this one's at a 25. I've got a lot of room to improve. I should be focusing my resources towards that property. So we really do it for two reasons: accurate benchmarking and a level playing field across our sites, and then the added recognition.
I love that. Thank you, guys. And especially with Isela, there was that note that you talked about to celebrate the wins. So that's actually a little bit past my involvement with the properties, because once they earn it, I'm like, great, let's go to the next one. But for you guys, it's really important that you celebrate those wins. It's giving that extra recognition to the property teams, to the folks that are running the buildings, and giving them that extra validation that they're operating the facility at a that upper echelon, the upper 25 percentile, that they should earn recognition for, that they should be celebrated for. So I think that on-site teams would welcome the addition of being celebrated, right? The EPA puts out a couple little stats. They say, on average, Energy Star buildings, use 35% less energy. They have 35% less greenhouse gas emissions. They have higher rental and occupancy rates. So, Isela, that kind of goes to your point on the location finder, the certified buildings location finder, where you can use it as a marketing piece to say, well, there aren't any other buildings in this area that we are comparable to that have this certification. So the point that the EPA is making with earning this certification is that the building should be operating more efficiently than a non-certified building. So if a resident or a tenant or a potential tenant is looking to move into this building, they all things considered the same, if one has an Energy Star certification, that might just be enough to take it over the edge. Maybe it's not the decision maker, but it's going to push in the right direction to put the certified building as a winner. I do have a question from the audience. So we've got a question on, have either of you experienced any pushback on your ESG initiatives internally or externally, and how have you responded? Maybe Michael, you want to take that one first?
No, everyone loves ESG, especially in today's political climate. I think there's no pushback ever, right? Uh, that's not the reality that we're in. Of course, we see pushback. Our company is a leader in a lot of these avenues, so there's not as much internally as I've seen at some other companies I've worked with or for. But definitely in the marketplace, you're seeing, you know, some investors start to question the value of the ESG initiatives. You're starting to see some of those, like that big momentum towards ESG in the 2010s. There's some questioning of that going on right now, and I think we're seeing that trickle down. And so, our focus is definitely on. We think it doesn't just make ESG sense. We think these initiatives that we're taking on make business sense. And for Energy Star especially, it's pretty low cost to certify, and the projects that you complete to get Energy Star certified are good for your bottom line. You're doing lighting retrofits, you're doing HVAC improvements, you're saving money. So I think it's really hard to argue against those points, right? We're not just doing it because of ESG. We're doing it because this makes business sense, and we're operating our buildings more effectively as a result, and keeping our tenants happier as a result of that. So that's kind of my perspective on it. I am definitely hearing those conversations going on, but I strongly push back on that with this. The projects related to Energy Star really make a ton of business sense. Do you have
Yeah,
similar
everyone.
experience?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've all probably heard versions of it's a challenging environment, it's a competitive environment. ESG is no longer perhaps a warm and fuzzy word that's embraced. And so it comes back to, Do you have the strong business case for it? Okay, are you showing that sustainability, ESG, responsibility, whatever you want to call it, is it driving towards value? Is it driving towards cost savings? Is it driving towards efficiency? Is it improving the profile of this property? However you want to look at that. And as Michael pointed out, especially if you're in the value add side of the food chain, you're likely working with older buildings, and we very much are. When I mentioned Class B, Class C in our multifamily areas, we are inheriting properties that typically haven't necessarily been deemed the most efficient. They're not the shiny buildings out there. Yet we take great pride and joy in having them be properties, communities that our residents really want to be at. Like you talked about turnover. And so we think about that regardless. Now, when we come into the picture, someone like myself or a team member, we say, how do we continue to drive that part of the equation? So you really want to improve the appeal of the property. Here's yet another way that you can do that. You're already going to spend your earmarked dollars in CapEx based on your budget. You're already going to, think about how you want to drive leasing in a more proactive way than, say, the prior owner. And so something like Energy Star certification can feed into both of those. You just have to understand what it is, how do you do it, and then hopefully proceed forward.
Fantastic. Well, maybe moving on to another topic. I know that the EPA tends to refresh scores every now and then. When they do a recalibration on a certain property type, scores tend to go down a little bit. So, like for a really good example, some breaking news for everyone. Sometime in 2025, the EPA is going to recalibrate their multifamily scores. So the scores for a multifamily building are probably all going to go down a little bit because as people are making improvements to their buildings and working their way into the way that the EPA collects their survey data, the building stock tends to get a little bit more efficient. So as general building stock gets more efficient, that raises the bar a little bit and scores get lower. So if you want to earn your awards now would be the chance to do it, just to make sure you get those nice high upper echelon scores. So that's one quick thing. The question I have, and I'll start with Michael, is: are there any surprises to you through this Energy Star program? What are the things that give you challenges from time to time?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges probably for both of us on this call is really obtaining that whole building energy data. We heard that at Bridge you've actually got to go make partnerships with utility companies twice a year to get that. And so for most of our outpatient medical buildings, we luckily pay those bills directly in most instances and have whole building utility data that's flowing directly into Energy Star. But there's a number of buildings where tenants will pay their meters directly for certain suites, where we might have a partnership with the hospital to receive chilled water or steam. And then you don't have whole building utility data. And so those instances are harder than you'd think they would be to mitigate, right? Just getting how much energy your building is using in total should be an easy problem to solve for. In reality, there's sometimes a lot of hoops to jump through to actually get access to that data, and then to verify that it's accurate. So that's probably the biggest surprise is how challenging that is, and that is one of the bigger challenges that we face in having accurate Energy Star scores for all of our properties.
A similar question to you, Isela. Being newer to the program, is there anything that jumps out to you as a surprising challenge?
As Michael said, the data we have to live and breathe it. I'm fortunate to have dedicated team members that help. help me because I just couldn't do it all myself. So when I started this program in early 2020, I was a one woman show, and so there's a reason why we're just now doing Energy Star certification in our multifamily properties. It took it took some runway there to build. Um, I would say, the other challenge, maybe stepping away from the data, is the logistics. How do you actually get it done? How do you get to this point where it can become almost autopilot? Not that anything is truly that, but and I would say for us, it's been a true team effort. I could not have done it with some key members at my company who are supporting this and more on the sustainability realm. And we've had to have a number of internal discussions to again get everyone that we needed informed. I think there's a fair amount of education that we take maybe some of that for granted if you're in the sustainability world day to day. So just the why, the how, and all of those, like, here are the top 7 reasons to do Energy Star certifications. I think we've all seen those articles, and they're also on the EP's website. So just, circulating those and then recognizing what you'll need potentially from different team members. So think about what you might need for those at the property level. Think about what you might need from asset management type of team members. Think about what information and updates you need to deliver to different levels of seniority. And then the folks that are going to work with, say, a partner like Conservice, having those identified go-to people. So it just feels like it's very clearly laid out. Those that will get contacted that maybe aren't as familiar, they get that heads up, something's coming. Very clear emails. We thought a lot about that. Like, let's put ourselves in the seat of a property manager. Let's put ourselves in the seat of an engineer. And if they're doing this for the first time, what would be helpful to them? Knowing that they'll get a link to a survey, knowing that they might have to buy some devices to measure, humidity and lighting, etc. So all of that has been part of just our process, a very thoughtful process to be able to get ready.
Yeah, thank you for that. For sure. Like there are lots of challenges. I see an enormous amount of challenges because we work with a lot of different buildings, and I can highlight one recent one. We actually had a customer that came to us. I've been working on their certification for like 5 years in a row. So and then we did get another question. Do you recertify every year? It's optional. You can recertify every year. You can choose not to. So it's really an optional program. You can choose to pursue it every year if you want. A lot of buildings do pursue every year, and they actually highlight the building on the EPA's website. Whether it's 1 year certified, well, I don't really highlight 1 year certified, but 2 year certified, 3 year certified, 10 year certified. I've got one building in Minneapolis, the second tallest building in the state of Minnesota. They've been certified 19 out of 20 years. So it's they keep up with their string of certifications, which is kind of fun. Um, Another neat thing though is challenges with certification. If you do run into a major problem, the EPA, contact the EPA and see if there's something that they can help advise you on. This particular customer that had this string of certifications, they had solar panels on their property, but their solar meter failed. So the EPA came up with a great solution. I thought they were toast. I really thought that we weren't really going to have any kind of way to get this building certified. It had a couple of months of missing solar data, so the EPA was willing to work with the property team and myself and with Conservice to make sure that we can still submit them for an award this year. And so that, like, my point is, if you do have a challenge, talk to the EPA and see if there's anything that can happen to any advice that they have to try to get you still across that finish line. A couple of other things that are here. Oh, here, I got another question. We got a question from Bethany asking, what is your reasoning for choosing Energy Star certification over other green certifications like LEED and IREM, Fitwell, stuff like that? So maybe Michael, you want to take this question first, and Isela jump in too. Why Energy Star over other ones?
Yeah, I think, at Lily Bridge, we do LEED certifications for new building development primarily, but we focus on Energy Star for existing building inventory, some are older assets. And I think the big reason for that is, a lot of these other certifications include other factors into, how they score you. Um, and Energy Star is really the one that truly focuses on how is my building performing from an energy standpoint. And as the director of sustainability, I just find that so valuable to know, um, and to be able to compare those assets. That's the data that I'm ultimately after. Are there opportunities for our operations team to improve the efficiencies of this building? If so, let's go out and do that because again, it makes business sense and it makes energy sense. So we should go out and do that. I just think it really helps you compare what I'm most interested in comparing, which is how energy efficient are my buildings.
I would agree with Michael and add to something I think we both said earlier, which is accessibility. And what I would add to that is affordability. So if you just actually sit down and you compare the costs of pursuing the certification, knowing you have to hire a third party, and in some cases the actual fees involved, this is going to come out at the top. In other words, it is going to be among the most affordable. Now, there is this future possibility where either one of us, as well as many of our peers, it's Energy Star plus something else. So it doesn't mean you have to pick one and only one, is my message. So there are many firms out there where this becomes, in many ways, just a staple of their sustainability program. If the building is proving itself after all its investments made that it can achieve and retain that score 75 or higher, this is just one of the accolades, as we've talked about, that you just do. You get to a point where you want to cash in on the win of having achieved it, and then you hopefully can keep it, you sustain it. And then if down the road you want to see other possibilities, like how do I potentially pursue something else that maybe would complement, that looks at the S of ESG or looks at the S and the G of ESG? Sure, why not?
Yeah, I really like that point. And yeah, do as many as you can afford and have resources to accomplish, right? You're taking credit for work you're already doing. I don't think there's, a bad certification out there. It's just how do you prioritize and where do you focus your resources?
Yeah, like just to share on that note, in our seniors housing and some of our office buildings historically, we've done the well health and safety rating, just to give an example. And that does not focus on energy efficiency. So that could be an example as someone is thinking, what else might I do if I want to look at Energy Star and another program? We haven't done it in the case of senior housing for both, but in the case of office, we have looked at both.
Well, I tend to think that the Energy Star program one is simple, low cost, and a quick kind of a quick win. We talked a little bit about, Isela mentioned that the timing of an application, and you have to have, current utility data to within the past 120 days, which can be a challenge. There's some places that only give you, like I got an area in Illinois that was it People's Gas. They'll only give you that gas for 12 months, and they only give you the calendar year. So you've got to do, if you want to do an Energy Star award certification, you've got to do it at the beginning of the year, because if you get towards the end of the year, well, you used to be out of luck. I actually just heard that the EPA made an exception for someone. So, um, you know, if you get stuck in a bind, see if the EPA is willing to work with you. But that timing, yes, you got to make sure that things happen in a certain succession, and by the time when it's all said and done, for us to do a certification, it takes a handful of weeks. But you want to make sure that if you want a 2024 award, you have to do it pretty much within 2024. If you get it submitted to the EPA towards the end of the year, maybe it's into December, they get a little backlog, so they take some time. You might end up getting approved. You got to get submitted in 2024, but you might get approved in January. They kind of move that through to make sure you still get your 2024. There is a deadline though. The EPA, they did set December 13th as the deadline to get submitted, where they'll guarantee that you're going to get a 2024 award if you're submitted to the EPA by December 13th. So it gives them a couple of weeks to review. You got Christmas in there, you got New Year's in there. So um, but yeah, what we try to do is we try to make sure we get all of our folks that want to earn awards, that we want to get them contracted as soon as possible, so that we can have plenty of time to make sure that we reach out to the property teams, that the profile is vetted and verified, that we have current data. If there's something that we need to acquire and go get. So yeah, the timing is important. And what's a little unusual is once it hits August 31st, all buildings become eligible for, well, all buildings 75 or higher become eligible for the 2024 award if they haven't earned one yet. So that's why we see a big spike in certifications moving into the last quarter of the year. Great. So what else have we got? We could use some more pro tips. Michael, let's see. Let's talk about a little bit about. Do you have any specific projects or things to highlight that you've implemented at your buildings to help raise scores? I get this question a lot. I get the how do I get my score better? So maybe let's talk a little bit about scores and how we can play with them a little bit.
Certainly. So from an operational standpoint, I think that the two biggest levers that we see in our outpatient medical portfolio, and this is relevant because last year we acquired a bunch of buildings and we're now applying the Lily Bridge way to a number of those properties, right? And so if it's an older property, we're going in immediately checking out lighting. If it doesn't have LED lighting, you got to get LED lighting in that building. That's going to jump your score up pretty significantly. And the second really big area of focus is a good building management system. So good controls on your major HVAC equipment, getting that building scheduled to occupancy, getting some temperature and pressure resets implemented to keep your tenants comfortable while using less energy. Those two things in a majority of our buildings is what takes us from not being able to certify them to being able to certify them. Now, that's not every property, and so some of the things to look at when we actually look at building information is, are you accurately reflecting any high energy use reasons in your property? And for outpatient medical buildings, that's primarily identifying the number of surgical beds and the square footage of surgery center and the number of MRI machines, because we know that those can really, skyrocket your utility consumption. And luckily for us, Energy Star takes those factors into account for your buildings. And so sometimes we'll see if we were missing an MRI at a building, or maybe we had 0 MRIs and there were actually 2 MRIs in that property, we could see a score jump, from 50 to 80 just by making that change, because of how energy hungry some of these pieces of medical equipment actually are. So I would say those are the big things that take us to get to Energy Star certified. But we are also tying in, we've got a net zero operational carbon goal at Ventas by 2040. And so if those steps aren't enough, we're actively looking at building insulation, replacing old boilers with heat pumps, upgrading our rooftop units. So there's equipment replacements that tie into this as well. But for a lot of our properties, we can achieve that Energy Star certification today. Now, who knows when they recalibrate? But today we can achieve that certification with lighting and good building management controls.
Wonderful. And then, similar question, Isela. Have when you're looking at your benchmarking performance, are you setting goals and looking to improve? Have you had the chance to start looking at improvements yet, or is it more get them benchmarked and get that first look on them?
I would say the work on the property probably starts just as quickly as us setting up that ESPN profile. It's actually pretty amazing how those happen in parallel, because during our due diligence, during the underwriting phase, before we're even the owner, we've already created that, that CapEx plan, an OpEx plan. So again, given that I'm just going to mention examples here for multifamily value add and in the realm that we're in of Class B and Class C, typically low rise and mid rise. We've got sort of a two-prong approach. All of the work that's going to get done focused on the common areas, those common utilities, or I'm sorry, common amenities and the utilities tied to that. And then the individual unit turns. And usually we have a phased approach with those unit turns, typically as the units become vacant. That's when we do the most work. But if you definitely know that, say, we're acquiring a property and very little has done in the way of lighting. I know you hear that often, but that is the low hanging fruit. Then we'll make a point of saying, how quickly can we introduce LED lighting across this property and all of those areas. And then from there, a lot of it is honestly, how do we look at resident engagement? Because if you think about it, residents ultimately typically pay their electric bill. Now, hopefully, they're just as incentivized as we are to lower the pricing, or at least lower and maintain the size of their electric consumption and their costs. And so we put together and have been issuing a green living guide. It goes out to all of our residents, and a lot of it's pretty practical knowledge, but it's things like we went to the DOE's website and just, borrowed a lot of their recommendations. So it's everything from, how is temperature control happening in your unit? So maybe you don't have smart technology in the units, again, depending on the age and what's there. But if you don't, you are asking your residents to just play more of that active role. It's everything from, are they thinking about, do they have to run the AC 24/7, especially if they're not there? Or can they save energy by, letting thermostats go to 78 degrees in the summer and 68 degrees Fahrenheit in the winter? And when they're not home, it can even get warmer and colder respectively. And then we also, whenever we're doing CapEx work, we're also constantly looking at the other fixtures in the property. So all of the other appliances that do rely on electricity, can we replace them with more efficient ones when that time comes, and not necessarily an equivalent cheaper product, but if possible, something that's similarly priced but far more efficient. And I say that too because our properties are quite large. We're talking 400, 800, even over 1,000 units. So that concept of, can an individual unit, can an individual household make a difference? Yes, especially when you start talking at that scale.
Wow. Michael, Isela, you guys are certainly a wealth of knowledge. We are very lucky to have you speak for us today and speak with us today. I really appreciate it. I'm happy to share all this information for everyone. I really, it's been fun. I guess that concludes today's webinar. The webinar will be sent out shortly. If you have any additional questions for our speakers, please feel free to reach out. We're happy to help. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for the
Thanks, Scott.
opportunity.